parlor rooms, and in one of the parlor rooms, someone had smelled perfume, and there was like 5 people around that one person. Not a single one of them said that they also smelled perfume. So it was really, really odd, and basically it was pretty.
That's a cool one, though. That's happened to me.
Hopefully they're all ready to party for you guys.
Hopefully.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Dakota. Good night. All right. So Devin just walked into the office. She probably just started that live stream. If you want to wave hello to this camera over here, you can say hi to all of our YouTube followers. Hi, everyone. Okay. So actually, before I get started with this equipment, Dakota just brought up a really good point. He was talking about someone having an experience where they were smelling something in the house. I'm about to introduce all of this equipment for you. I'm really excited that you get to use this equipment, but you are your best investigative tool. Pay attention to what's happening to you. If you hear something, if you smell something, if you feel something, say something to your group. Somebody else could be having the same experience, or maybe they can debunk it for you. But pay attention to what's happening to you. Also, if you walk into a room and you feel drawn toward a certain corner, grab your equipment and head toward that corner. Listen to what's happening inside. If you feel uncomfortable heading toward that corner, hang back and take 3 pictures of that corner. But pay attention to what's going on. All right, so let's get started with the equipment. And by the way, I've split you up into groups of 4. It doesn't mean you have to investigate with the group of 4 the entire time. Obviously, you're going to stay in your location where you're assigned for that 25 minutes, but you don't have to stay as a group. If you want to wander off by yourself into another room, you're more than welcome to do that. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that I'm not requiring you to stay with a group of 4 the whole time. It's up to you. All right, so first up, everybody is going to get a walkie-talkie. So each group gets 1 walkie-talkie. Whoever wants it from this group. Anybody? Whoever wants it from this group, great. Whoever wants it from this group, fantastic. And I'm going to have one as well. So each group has a walkie-talkie, I have a walkie-talkie, and Devin has a walkie-talkie. You can clip these to yourself. It's a lot easier. You're going to be holding some equipment, so it makes it easier that way. Now, you have these walkie-talkies for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's so that you know when it's time to rotate and where to go next. You're going to hear my voice come through on this walkie-talkie every 25 minutes telling you where to go. The first time my voice comes through, it will scare you. This is going to be the scariest moment of tonight, I promise. It always startles people. And then after that, you'll get used to it and you'll learn to expect my voice coming through. The other reason that you're giving these walkie-talkies is because you're investigating in the dark in a haunted house in the middle of the night. I think that we're going to have a really good time here tonight. But if you feel uncomfortable at any point, I don't want you to keep feeling uncomfortable. If you need to take a step outside, take a step outside. We're going to turn the lights out outside except the stringed lights above the benches where we were all sitting. So if you need to go have a seat out there and take a breath, please do that. If you need Devin or I to come get you at any point, just walkie us. We're happy to come get you. There's no shame in that at all. People take breaks all the time. That's absolutely okay. Just so you know, everyone can hear you on the walkie. If you're walking through, it doesn't just go to me. So just so you know, we're all on the same station, but feel free to use it if you need to. That's why it's given to you. Okay? Great. All right, so next up, everybody's going to get 2 flashlights. So every group gets 2. Probably the most scared person of every group should have a flashlight. Who else wants one?
I got the walkie. I've already got my 2.
We've got a bunch of our own stuff already.
You have a flashlight?
Yeah.
There you go. Whoever wants it.
He does. Okay. I got the walkie already, so we're.
You have a flashlight
He's
already?
got his thermal camera. He's all set to.
Okay. Whoever wants.
Everybody
bought so much equipment. Okay, cool. What type of equipment did we bring here tonight?
Millimeter, thermal camera, recorder.
Great. Okay. What did y'all bring? Thermal camera, and that's it? What did y'all bring?
Voice recorder and flashlight.
Oh, great. Okay. I'm just making sure nobody brought like an external speaker for a spirit box or something like that. That would be noisy. We just wanted to go over that, but that's totally fine. Yeah. Feel free to use any of your equipment and any of ours. Yeah. You don't have to take anything that I'm handing out, but take it if you want. All right. Great. So Oh, so the flashlights. So you're obviously given flashlights so you can see where you're going. We're going to be in the dark. But you can also use these flashlights to communicate with the spirits. You can use them as what's called a trigger object. You can set a flashlight down on the floor. You can ask a spirit to roll the flashlight toward you, roll it away from you. Ask them to interact with it. Another thing you can do with these flashlights, every group has been given 2 flashlights that are different colors. That's on purpose. So we are looking for intelligent communication here tonight. We're hoping that all of this equipment goes off, but we're hoping it doesn't go off just willy-nilly. We're trying to establish some rules and see if the spirits can follow those rules. So you can set down both of your flashlights next to each other. Maybe you'll establish that blue means yes and black means no. Then you can ask some yes or no questions. You can ask a spirit to dim the light for yes, to turn it off, turn it back on for yes or no questions. So again, you're going to establish those rules in the room out loud, and then you can try to see if they can follow the rules that you're establishing. So use the flashlights to see where you're going and to communicate if you want to. Just a tip. All right. Any questions with that? No? Okay. So next up, does anyone know what this is? What is this? An EMF meter, yes. An EMF meter or a K2. So this is your most basic piece of investigative equipment. If you ever do another investigation, you're going to be given a K2. So this is measuring electromagnetic frequency, EMF. Basically, this is measuring energy. The way that this works, I'm going to hand it to you when it's already on. You don't have to do anything with this piece of equipment after that. So this green light just means that it's on. This is your base reading. What you're looking for with this is a spike. You're hoping that it will spike all the way to red. And again, you're hoping it will spike when you're asking it to. So I'm giving every group 2 EMF meters. Again, this is on purpose. A tip for you. You can put one K2 on one side of the room. Put the other K2 on the other side of the room. Maybe this one is lighting up. And you can say, you know, all right, I see you over there. Hey, how about walking to the other side of the room and making the other K2 light up and see if it'll follow those rules that you're establishing. That would be neat. That's what we're hoping for. Another note on these, if you shake them around, you're going to get a false reading. If I were you, I'd kind of just hold it flat in my hand, in the palm of my hand. You're absolutely welcome to walk around with it. But if you're waving it around or shaking, you're going to get a false reading. So if I were you, I'd set it down on a table or a sofa or keep it pretty flat, and I would just walk around with it like that or keep it still. But again, up to you. All right, so whoever wants it, you guys already have EMF? Okay, great. Cool. You guys get your own EMF meters. Do you want one? You don't have to. No, good. Okay. There you go. Okay. This is fun. The way that
Yeah, he wants one.
okay. The way that I split these groups is we have first-time investigators and not first-time investigators. That's kind of great. All right. So, how are you feeling so far with this equipment? We're feeling okay? Okay. I'm going to introduce some more. Why not? We're here. All right. So, does anyone know what this is?
Nope. Is that the ovulus? Okay.
This is a spirit box. A ghost box, a voice box, right? So an audio recorder, with an audio recorder, you might capture an EVP, an electronic voice phenomenon. That's something that you hear later through the recording and not in the room at the time. With this piece of equipment, you will hear a response in real time, okay? So the way that this works is, this is going to seem silly, but when you're in the dark, you're going to appreciate it. I'm going to come around to each group and I'm going to show you the 2 buttons that you have to pay attention to. This is a tiny little power button right here, tiny little power button, and then tiny sweep REV for sweep reverse right here. Those are the 2 buttons you're paying attention to, both on the bottom row. In this group, tiny power button, little tiny power, little tiny sweep REV, sweep reverse. Yeah? Okay. So this group. So we've got a little tiny power button right here, and then a little tiny sweep REV. See that? Sweep reverse. Okay, those are the only 2 buttons that you need to pay attention to. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. This is a glorified radio, okay? It's a radio. All right, I'm going to press sweep reverse. You hear that? It's sweeping through the radio stations. Okay, So every time you're going to use this, you're going to press power and you're going to press sweep reverse, and you want to be hearing it sweeping through for it to work. So spirits are basically energy. This is an established energy source that allows the spirits to communicate with you through. So what you're listening for with this is a vocalization that will extend past the length of one change of a frequency. You're listening for a response, a word, a phrase that will overlay multiple channels. You will hear the occasional radio interference. You're gonna hear the occasional like ah, ooh, ee, ah, right? You're gonna hear maybe like a country twang come through a little bit. You're gonna know that that's the radio. But what you're listening for is a vocalization that will not be broken up. Okay, it will overlay those multiple channels, and it usually sounds a little bit louder. Has anyone used one of these before?
Yes.
No, does it sound louder to you? Would you say that?
Yes.
A little bit.
Different.
Mhm.
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah.
different. It sounds different, so you'll know it when you hear it. So use this to communicate with them and get some responses in real time. Okay, does this make sense to everyone? Basically, at least, this is a very basic paranormal theory, kind of quick 101. Anybody?
Sure.
Whoever wants it. Okay. So, a quick note on communicating with these spirits. Some people, I think, are first-time investigators. We usually have first-time investigators, which is great. Now, you're well, I'm not going to assume, but I feel really weird sometimes when I'm investigating. You walk into a seemingly empty room, and you're asking questions to the air, and you feel like a real kook, right? But while you're here tonight, lean into it. You know, why not? If I were you, I would walk into a room and I would introduce myself. I would treat these spirits like human beings, because that's essentially what they are. These are people. And you're going to treat them like a stranger that you want to befriend. You're not going to run up to someone and say, who are you and why are you here? Right? That's not a good way to start a conversation. You're going to maybe pay them a compliment. You're going to introduce yourself. You're going to create a rapport with them. So do that with these spirits tonight. Now, if you've asked, and when you ask a question, if I were you, I'd wait like 10 seconds. I would give them time to respond. And then I would ask the question again. And then I would ask the question in a different way. And I would wait every time for a response afterwards. Now, if you are in a room and you feel like you've exhausted all of your questions and you've repeated them 3 times, then have a conversation amongst yourselves if you want to. You can be quiet too. That's up to you. But I did have a group that wasn't getting anything all night. They were hanging out in the lower level investigating. They couldn't think of anything else to ask, so they started to have a conversation. There was a teddy bear in that room. And one of the girls said, well, I didn't have a teddy bear growing up. I had a stuffed lamb. And she started to talk about this stuffed lamb. And as she started to describe it, all of the equipment in the room started to go off. It was really cool. It was like she had said something that made a spirit relate to her, maybe. It made them feel comfortable with her, and then they wanted to communicate. So have a conversation amongst yourselves. Maybe you're from Michigan, and maybe we have a spirit from Michigan. I don't know, right? And then maybe they'll relate to you, and they'll want to talk. So have a conversation amongst yourselves. Okay, so you now have all of the equipment that you're responsible for tonight. This is all of the equipment that you're bringing around with you from level to level, rotation to rotation, and it's what you're going to bring back with you at the end of the night for the debrief. I'm going to need to make sure that I have all of the equipment back in my hands at the end of the night. But don't fear, I have some more pieces. These are stationary pieces of equipment. So this is an EDI, or an environmental detection instrument. This is 3 pieces of equipment in one. So this is measuring ambient temperature. That's what this digital read the numbers at the top are. That's the ambient temperature. To be honest, it's not that interesting. If you see a really big increase or a big decrease, that would obviously be noteworthy. Otherwise, I wouldn't really pay attention to the numbers too much. This also measures EMF. Just like your K2 measures EMF. So it'll light up blue if it's sensing any electromagnetic frequency. What we're really using this piece of equipment for, though, is the geophone that's built in. This is measuring seismic activity. So I'm going to just set this right here. Would you stomp your foot for me? Did you see it light up? Did you see it? Nope, they can't see it. I'll put it over here. So will you do it again? Do you see it light up down here?
Yeah.
All right, so I am barely tapping on this island right now, and it is still lighting up. It is pretty sensitive, okay? So I'm going to be putting this piece of equipment in a location in the mansion where we get a lot of reports of footsteps. If you hear footsteps, go out to the foyer and see if this is lighting up. Another thing you can do with this, ask that you don't stomp. That was just for the tutorial. You're going to be upstairs in the mansion and it'll be too loud for you to stomp. But you can make a noise and ask the spirit to imitate you. I'm going to set this down on the staircase. You can rap on the railing. Maybe you'll knock 4 times, and you'll ask the spirit to knock back 4 times. Maybe you won't hear a knock, but you'll see it light up 4 times. You can also try the shave and the haircut and see if it'll blink, blink at the end, finish it out. We've had success with that in the past, so try it if you want to. Okay. So last but not least, does anyone know what this is? REM pod, yes. If you're a fan of Ghost Adventures, you've seen a REM pod. Yeah. So this is really fun. This is usually people's favorite piece of equipment. So the way that this works, here you can step forward if you need to. I know you can't quite see the desk. So the way that this works, can you see it? Okay. This is emitting its own electromagnetic field around its antenna. When something breaks that field, it lets you know through lights and sound. So right? It's pretty sensitive. So this is really fun. This lights up and it makes noise. We do have children spirits at this property. If you're good with kids, turn this into a game. Ask them to communicate with you through the REM pod. Make it fun for them. Make it fun for you. Another note on this piece of equipment, because it's so fun and lights up and makes noise, yes, so often want to touch it. If you keep touching this piece of equipment, you're going to get a false reading. It's going to keep going off, and it's not a ghost, it's just because you can't leave it alone. So you do not need to show the ghosts how this equipment works tonight. I promise you, all of it is on, and it's calibrated before you get there. That's what Devin's job is. So you don't need to test it out, and you don't need to show the ghost how it works. Sometimes I have guests who are taking all this time to try to explain to the spirits how the equipment works in 19th century vernacular, and that's really hard to do. You don't need to do that. We have investigations every weekend. Again, these are intelligent spirits. They know what a K2 is. They know what a REM pod is. You can just call it what it is and just go from there. So don't worry about taking time to explain how it works or use vernacular of their era. Okay. Great. So there are 3 REM pods. There's 1 in each location where you'll be investigating tonight. So these are there for your use. Again, this and the EDI are both stationary pieces of equipment. So I ask that you just leave them where they are. They're set up in specific places for your benefit anyway. Okay? Any questions?
So we can take pictures. Can we take video?
Absolutely. Video, audio recordings on your phone, photos, whatever your heart desires. Yes, please do. Actually, with the audio recordings, that brings me to another point. With your spirit box, it does not record audio. So if you hear a spirit respond to one of your questions, you're probably going to want to hear it again. I would be recording it if I were you. A lot of people just use the voice memo app, and that seems to work really well to record audio. So if I were you, I'd have a spirit box session. I would maybe grab my group. I would sit down on the floor. The spirit boxes have a little kickstand in the back. So you can set it down, turn it on, sweep reverse, turn your recorder on, and then have a session. Ask some questions during that time. Another thing with this, don't whisper. If you whisper, you're going to go back and listen to your recording, and you're going to think it was a ghost, and it's not. You're not going to remember that you whispered during that moment. Another thing, this is the Saturday in Savannah. It's also a holiday, so there are going to be some loud people out on the streets, maybe. If you hear somebody on the street, note that. We had an investigation where they were asking yes or no questions, and some guy on the street yelled, "Yeah!" And then they thought it was a ghost, and it wasn't. It was just a drunkard on the street. So when that happens, just say, "Oh, that was some guy on the street." If you shift your weight, like I just did in the floorboard creek, say, "Oh, that was me, I shifted my weight." So that you go back and you know it's not paranormal. It's just going to be helpful for you later. Okay? Great. All right. Feeling good? Any more questions? No? This is the
Anything
time.
in particular that you've noticed in the different locations yourself?
Definitely. When I take you throughout, I'll let you know some of those and what to look out for. Yeah, for sure. All right, I'm going to grab this EDI, and we're going to head on into the mansion. Yes?
Okay,
Is there anywhere I can put this?
Yes, if you want to just put this in, I'm gonna put it. Don't forget it. I might forget it, so I'm just gonna put it in this drawer right here. That's
I
fine.
have a question.
Yes,
This is probably dumb, but
probably not.
I'm sure they can probably sense that I'm terrified. So
Maybe.
is that like a bad thing?
No.
Okay, because I'm like, I don't want to be
It's
someone
not.
here that's freaked out because all y'all seem so prepared, and I'm like,
Everyone does seem very prepared. It's cool.
okay.
I think that should give you more reason to feel okay, first of all.
Okay,
But no,
okay.
I get asked a lot
We'll get
if we believe that the spirits are going to interact with someone who's a skeptic more than they're going to interact with someone who's not. I'm not saying you're a skeptic. I know you're not. But no, these spirits interact with different people for different reasons. But they are not going to come for you just because you're scared. I don't know that they can sense that you're scared.
I was just saying, I don't want somebody to be like, oh, she's scared. Let's start playing with her hair. I'm like,
Someone could play with your hair tonight.
I totally, I feel like I
That
need to
does
put on my
happen.
Now they will.
That does happen, but no. And you know what? If you walk into a room and you're freaked out, you can say out loud, "I'd rather not communicate with you." You can say, "I'm going to sit over here, and if y'all could leave me alone, that would be great." And they will.
Okay.
This is your time dimension, and you are in charge of this realm, honestly. So if you feel uncomfortable, you say, "I don't want to be a part of this. I'm going to sit over here by myself. Thank you very much. I respect you. Do your own thing over there." You know, and that's fine. Say that in every room you walk in if you want to, and they should leave you alone.
Okay.
Does that make you feel any better?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, good. Okay. Okay, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Okay, guys, you can follow me into the mansion this way.
This is not our first rodeo.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
It's
Nothing
always fun.
nothing bad happens.
Never done this before.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So, welcome inside the Sorrel-Weed mansion. It's a bit of a weird introduction coming into a dark basement. I recognize that. We're going to head upstairs after this. You'll be able to see the beauty of the home, but at least this gives you an idea of what it would have looked like when the Sorrels were living here at 12 in the morning, right? They didn't have electricity, so this gives us a nice understanding of what it would have been like. Now, this house was constructed in 1840. It was built for a man named Francis Sorrel as a wedding present to his second wife, Matilda. So those are two spirits you can reach out for tonight. We'll talk more about them momentarily. Now, while the Sorrels were living here, this lower level where you walked into, this was the slaves' working quarters. The Sorrels did have probably up to 15 enslaved house servants while they were living here. So this big room that we're all standing in now, this was the kitchen. All of the fireplaces in the lower levels were used for cooking. So while you're down here in this lower level, try to reach out to those slaves. Now you can also try to reach out to some soldiers. The Revolutionary War in Savannah was fought right outside in what is now Madison Square. In fact, the second bloodiest battle of the Revolutionary War was fought outside. And during that time in 1779, the British officers were living on this property in rudimentary barracks. It also happens to be where they died. Does anyone have a guess as to where their bodies are today? They are underneath us. So while you're investigating down in this lower level, you're walking over the scattered remains of those 12 British officers. Their bones are still here, and they are spirits that you can reach out to tonight. Now, there's another spirit that you can try to reach out to. He's sort of legendary in Savannah. That's implied that he's not real, but there are a lot of stories about him. We call him Shadow Man. Shadow Man is a very tall, very thin, three-dimensional looking shadow. So he's featureless, but he appears to have mass. He can be seen and experienced all over the lower level, but most commonly he's seen or captured in footage pacing in this breezeway, walking the length of it back and forth. as if he's keeping guard, perhaps. We think he's a soldier. We don't know too much else about him. Spend some time in the breezeway tonight while you're here. If you see a shadow or capture a shadow, it doesn't necessarily mean a shadow man. We have different shadow people, but he's a big one. He's quite tall, so he's pretty different. But spend some time in the breezeway. There's a chair at the end of the breezeway. That's put there for these investigations, so that you can sit there and ask Shadow Man questions about himself. If I were you, I would leave my equipment behind. I would go sit in that chair by myself. I would close my eyes and I would center myself and I would try to have an experience of my own. There's a lot of activity that happens in that breezeway. Bring your equipment back there, by all means. But if I were you, I would at least try for a little while to center myself and have an experience in the breezeway. But spend some time back there. Okay, so we're going to head to that next room in the back. There's a handle on the left side of the door. You can pull it toward you and head in. I'm going to blow these oil lamps out so it begins. That was me, sorry. Okay. All right. Put on the furniture. That chair I already told you can sit on in the breezeway. Please do. This sofa you can also sit on, and the sofa in the next room you can also sit on. Other than that, the rest of the furniture is going to be off limits. All of the furniture upstairs, all of these pieces over here, they're very fragile. This is a historic home museum, so I ask that you don't sit on, lean on any of the furniture. You can ask the spirits to interact with the furniture more than you do. But this sofa, the chair, and the sofa in the next room, please have a seat if you want to. Okay. So this room back here is what we as an historic home museum refer to as the linen room. We believe that this is the room in the home where the majority of the cleaning would have taken place, as well as some preparing meals. There's a fireplace in here. Now, we believe that this room tends to be pretty full of the spirits of the slaves running around trying to get all of their jobs accomplished. So while you're in here, reach out to the spirits of the slaves. Now, a note on these slaves. This is a city. These were urban slaves. These were not plantation slaves. People tend to automatically think that they're picking cotton in a field. They're not. These are skilled laborers. They're mechanics and carpenters, blacksmiths, cobblers, cooks, nannies, seamstresses, butlers, right? They have skill. It's different. Not saying it's better, just saying it's different. So while you're reaching out to them, ask them interesting questions about their work. If you're a carpenter, ask them specific questions about carpentry. Maybe you can reach out to someone who wants to talk about their skills. Ask them what they were cooking in the fireplace. Ask them if they had a favorite horse in the stable. Ask them if they had families. These are three-dimensional, very complex people. And you have a very interesting opportunity here tonight to ask them interesting questions. So please do. Okay? So in here, try to reach out to those slaves. Now also, I believe that there is a little boy in this room. I've heard this report enough times that I feel confident to tell you about it tonight. All the times that I've heard reported that this little boy is here, I've heard that he's sitting here by the fireplace and he's waiting for his parents to finish their job for the day. So for that reason, we believe that he is the son of slaves and a slave himself. We believe his name is Bobby. So if you're getting equipment to go off in here, or if you're getting a feeling in here, maybe it's because of Bobby. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's another slave. But at least you have a name to throw out there and try to connect with someone. Okay, so try to reach out to Bobby here and the other slaves. Before we go into the next room, is anyone wearing their favorite pair of earrings? No? If you're wearing your favorite pair of earrings or earrings that are important to you, take them out and put them in your pocket or your purse. This sounds like a scare tactic, but we have so many people call us after leaving this property and ask us for their earrings back. And we don't return their earrings because we can't find them. And telling you before we go into the next room, because it usually happens in that room. I think it's a little kid. I don't think it's a spiteful thing. I think someone is just trying to get your attention. They're seeing something sparkly by your face and they want to touch it. Okay? But if you have earrings on, if you have a sparkly watch, a necklace, anything, use those as trigger objects if you want to. You can set your earrings down on the table and you can ask the spirits to interact with your own personal jewelry. Ask them to not we're gonna head to the next room. You can push through those double doors. I'm gonna open these doors all the way. We'll tend to back into them and scare themselves. Thank you very much. Okay. So this room, well, as I told y'all, this was the slaves' working quarters. This room was used for dry storage for a while. But between 1845 and 1850, this room was the medical office of Dr. Frank Sorrel. Frank was one of Francis's oldest sons. And Frank was not a regular doctor. He wasn't practicing general medicine. He was a trauma surgeon. This was a makeshift operating room for 5.5 years. And Frank was a gifted trauma surgeon. Frank actually had the lowest mortality rate in the nation. But the lowest mortality rate in the nation in 1845 was 51%. He lost over half of his patients. There was a lot of death that occurred in this room. This is what we believe to be the most actively haunted room in the entire home. Also the most physically active. So pay attention to what you're feeling in here. I heard that too. Was it just one? It was just one thud. So if we were hearing consistent footsteps like that, I would say that that's probably a real person. But because it was just one sound, it could have been paranormal. That was neat. We are the only people on the property. All the tours have already concluded. So this is after hours, technically, right? So we're alone in here. There could be a former caretaker on the 3rd floor. So if you're hearing footsteps upstairs that sound consistent, you're hearing someone walk all the way across the room, you can let me know. It's probably him. If you're hearing footsteps like we just heard, or you're hearing small footsteps that are quick, it's not him. Okay, and he's the only person up there. So you can differentiate that on your own. I think that probably was paranormal. That was cool. All right. So while you're in here, yes, pay attention to what you're feeling, as I mentioned. Now, I don't think that Dr. Sorrel is here. I don't think Frank is here. Maybe he is. Feel free to reach out to him if you want to ask him some questions, but do reach out to his former patients. I do believe that they still linger here. The majority of surgeries that he was performing in here were amputations, as well as the removal of bullets. You can ask them specifically if that's why they were here, right? Ask them yes or no questions. It seems a little bit easier. He was also seeing a lot of locals who were falling off their horse and carriage and getting trampled by their horse and carriage. So you can ask them if they were here for that reason as well. So reach out to any of those former patients. Now, while you're in here too, I mentioned that we have those little kids. We think that there are 3 little kids in the lower level. Now, one of these kids, we believe, is a little girl who loves to play hide and seek. I hear myself say that during this little tour. I, too, hear that it sounds like the plot line of a bad horror movie, right? A little ghost girl who plays hide and seek. It sounds like I am making it up to scare you. But we have so many people report to us feeling their ankles touched, their shoelaces played with, pokes in the back of the leg, and it's happening when they're sitting on that sofa or when they're standing near a piece of furniture, most often. And we believe that she's hiding underneath these pieces of furniture, and she's letting you know that you found her by tugging on your shoelace or by grabbing you by the back of the ankles. But when you're touched by a ghost or a spirit, it does not feel like a human touch. If you feel a human touch while you're investigating here tonight, it's somebody else in your group trying to scare you, okay? It does feel like cobwebs that are brushing your skin and you can't get rid of them. It feels like a loose hair you can't find, like a bug crawling up your skin or a feather brushing over it. Those are ways guests most often describe it. Sometimes still it can feel like a warm sensation, like someone's holding up a lighter just to a patch of your skin. And other times like pins and needles to the point where it almost itches. So pay attention to what you're feeling in here and definitely have a seat on that sofa. Definitely invite this little girl, we think her name is Sarah. Invite Sarah to play hide and seek with you. Count down from 10 and go hide around the lower level or go see if you can seek her out. See if she can find you. Either way, it's fun and she usually is pretty eager to play with guests. So So try that. I had a group play Duck Duck Goose in here the other night too, and they left a gap for Sarah and their little circle. I thought that was such a good idea. So play games in here. We have those kids, and it's fun for you. Okay, so spend some time on the sofa. Definitely play hide and seek. Now the REM pod over here is here on a 19th century wheelchair. I can't tell you exactly who's sitting in this wheelchair, but you can ask whoever might be in it to not only make the REM pod go off, you can ask them to move the wheelchair. You can ask any of these spirits to move tangible objects while you're here. On a tour of mine, I missed it, but all of my guests watched one of those cast iron skillets that's hanging by the fireplace. They all watched that skillet move by itself. Ask them to do it again. Ask them to interact with all of the furniture, anything that's in the house. They're fair game to touch. All right, so ask whoever might be sitting here to roll toward you in the wheelchair, roll away from you. It might be a really slight movement, so pay attention to what you're hearing. The wheel in the back squeaks a little, and the two front wheels are obviously going to roll over the brick a bit. So pay attention to that in here. All right, so we're going to push through those next double doors. I'm going to blow out these oil lamps, and we're going to head upstairs.
Is the parlor room right above us?
Yes.
Oh, is that where they always do the chair?
No, that's this one. Okay.
I watched a video on your website about one of the rooms.
Yeah, it's this chair.
To see if they can push it back or no.
That chair is super fragile. If you're really careful with it, you can just definitely don't sit on it or anything. Okay, okay.
I would rather you.
Thank you for respecting. Yeah, I used to encourage guests to do that, but it's quite fragile.
That's what I'm asking, just to make sure.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Very considerate. Okay. Before we head upstairs, I also want to point out, if you have any funny feeling while you're here, a good way to test if it's paranormal or not is to move. If you walk into a room and you feel freezing cold or sad or dizzy or different in some way, walk back out of that room, cross that threshold again, and see if the feeling follows you. If that feeling goes away immediately when you cross that threshold, maybe it's paranormal. If it follows you back to your hotel tonight, it's probably just you. So that's a good way to test it out. Thresholds are a real thing in this field. If you're smelling something or having any sort of experience, walk out and walk back in and see if it follows you. It's a good way to test it. All right, we're going to head upstairs. All right. So these are the most beautiful rooms in the entire home. These were their party rooms, and this was the party house of Savannah during its time. These are the parlor rooms. So the way that the parties would have worked, you would have come in through the front door, come into these rooms, and been greeted by a huge feast. A giant banquet table would have spanned the length of both rooms from window to window. Ask them what they were eating that night, maybe. Tell them what you like to cook when you throw your own party. Talk to them about that. So after everybody had their fill of food and drink, the banquet table was removed, and a band was set up over here where the piano is today. At which point, of course, the dancing would have commenced. While you're up here investigating the parlor rooms, you can play music with your phone on airplane mode. Don't play it too loud. There's a group going to be downstairs who's also investigating. Noise travels. It's an old home. So don't play it too loud, but play music. Dance around in here. Invite a spirit to dance with you if you want to. Invite them to play the piano. If anybody is musically trained, especially, ask them to play the piano. Quick story, we had a woman and her son here investigating recently. He was classically trained on the piano, so he was asking whoever might be sitting at the piano to play a C note. He asked again for them to play a C note, and he didn't hear anything, so he was giving up when his mom ran into this room from the study, and she said, "What are you doing? They told us not to touch the furniture." And he was like, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "The piano, I heard you touch the piano." So she heard it play a C note, but he didn't, and that was pretty cool. So invite whoever might be sitting there to play the piano. You're probably not going to hear a whole song, but you might hear one note, so pay attention to that. So after the dancing, everybody would have grown tired at some point, and the men and the women would have retired to their separate rooms. So that room in the back is the ladies' parlor room, while this room we're all standing in now is the gentlemen's parlor room. They would have been separated by gender. Every group here tonight has both genders. Separate your group by gender if you want to. Try that. Have the gentlemen in here reaching out to the gentlemen. Have the ladies reaching out to the ladies. Switch it. Have the ladies reaching out to the gentlemen reaching out to the ladies. See what happens then. But separate your group by gender if you want to. Just another tip. Take them or leave them. We're all going to head into the next room, the ladies' parlor room right there. I'm going to tell you the main story of the night, and then we'll get to investigating. I'm going to turn this chandelier out. So these mirrors are important as well. While you're here, take some pictures of these mirrors. Some of our best photographic evidence comes when people take photographs in here. Sometimes they'll see something reflected behind them. They didn't see with their own eyes, they'll see in a photo. So take more than one photo at a time in these mirrors, or use the live photo with the burst capability. There's a REM pod over here on the sofa, just to call your attention to it. Don't know who's sitting there exactly. You can ask whoever might be sitting there to touch the REM pod. Ask them to sit down with it. Also, a note on the REM pod, if you walk into a room and the REM pod is already going berserk, maybe ask them to back away from the REM pod. Maybe count down from 10, and on the count of 1, ask them to back away from it. Count down from 3 and ask them to walk toward the REM pod, right? But establish these rules for them. Okay, so the main story of the night. This is a haunted house. You were probably expecting some tragedy. You already heard about the surgery of the Revolutionary War officers. There was some familial tragedy as well. So, March 27th, 1860. The Sorrels were planning their big spring events, another one of their luxurious parties. And Matilda, the lady of the home, she wanted to know how preparations for that party were going. In order to find out, she would have found her most trusted slave, and she would have asked her, how are preparations going? This slave's name was Molly. Molly had her own bedroom. The final location, the third location where you will be investigating tonight, is the upper level of the carriage house. That was the slave's living quarters. And Molly had her own bedroom within the living quarters. Every time I bring a group up there to investigate, when it's your turn for that rotation, I will walk up there with you and I'll give you some extra information about it. I saw the flicker too. That happens a lot when I'm telling this story before we get started. So, On this night on March 27th, Matilda's looking for Molly. She wants to know how preparations are going, but she can't find Molly. So the last place that she looks for her is her bedroom over there in the carriage house. And she does find Molly there. She also finds Francis, her husband, in Molly's bed with her. And we can take an educated guess as to what Francis was doing in Molly's bed with her. But it's really important we keep in mind Molly was a slave, and Francis was her slave owner. It's really doubtful that she ever had a choice. And Matilda, having seen this, was devastated. So Matilda ran down the steps from the carriage house. She ran back into the mansion. She went up to the 3rd floor above us. She locked herself inside of her bedroom. And then she came out to the 3rd-story balcony, and she tumbled over the ledge of the balcony. She fell head first. She landed in the courtyard below, which at that time was 4 feet lower and made of black slate tile. She obviously passed away that night. Just about 2 weeks after Matilda's loss, again nobody could find Molly. Again they were looking all over the house. The last place they looked for Molly again was her bedroom. And again they found her there. But this time she was hanging from a rafter in the ceiling of her bedroom. Molly was a slave. Therefore she was considered property and not a person. Thus there was never an investigation that took place into her death. It was simply written off as a suicide. Nobody bothered asking any more questions. We at the Sorrel-Weed house pretty unanimously believe that Molly was murdered. We know from records Molly was 4'11". The rafters in the ceiling of her bedroom are pretty tall. You can see them for yourself when we go up there. The original rafters are still there. It's also probably worth noting that historically, hanging was a white person's way of killing someone else. There's a lot of mystery that enshrouds both of these women's deaths, though, of course. I can't tell you exactly what happened to Molly. I can't tell you exactly what happened to Matilda. We do believe that Matilda suffered from depression. She lost 3 of her children. She was contracted into this marriage with Francis. His first wife was her older sister. She did struggle throughout her lifetime, but I can't tell you that she jumped. I can't tell you she wasn't pushed. Her death was actually reported as an accident, that she fainted over the balcony. I can tell you Matilda is buried outside of their family crypt in an unmarked grave. There's no reason for her to be buried that way unless it was suicide. So most people do come to the conclusions of murder and suicide. While you're here tonight, reach out to whomever you would like to reach out to. Ask them questions about their lives. Ask them questions about their deaths if you want to. I have one rule while you're here, and that rule is respect. This is first and foremost an historic home museum. I ask that you please have respect for this property. I also ask that you have respect for each other and that you have respect for the spirits. We work really hard to be respectful to these spirits so that they're respectful to us and to our guests. We could not hold this event if we thought we were putting you in harm's way in any way. So while you're here tonight investigating, you're representing us in a way. And we just ask that you keep up with that respect and you're kind to the spirits so that we can continue to do this. Okay, very simple rule. I know you guys will be able to follow it. All right, so that's it for me. Any questions at all? I know I threw so much at you in a short amount of time, but any questions regarding the equipment, names, refreshers, stories, rules, anything? No? Feeling good? All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Does anybody particularly want to start in the parlor room? Is anyone excited about getting the party started? No? Okay, y'all are going to start up here. Y'all are going to start in the parlor rooms, okay? So whoever your group is, I don't remember anymore. Okay, great, you know who you are. Okay, so y'all are going to start up here in the parlor rooms. Everybody else is going to follow me down to the lower level. I'll leave one of you down there and bring one to the carriage house. Now note on this door, if you don't open that door all the way, it's going to close on its own. It's not a ghost, it's a historic door. So just make sure if you want that door open, to open it wide enough. The only door that I ask you to keep closed is the one across the hall that leads down to the lower level, just so you have an extra barrier between the two levels of investigation. But keep doors open or close them, or ask the spirit to close them if you want to. That's up to you. Okay? Great. Yes, you can go ahead and open that. It's never good to that. All right. Happy investigating. in the unsafe by season. We use all kinds of
So I take pictures, you do everything. I also do have a night vision version.
Okay.
So if you're feeling weird, you see something, you want me to turn something on, let me know. If you want to grab this and hold this, you're more than welcome to. Whatever you guys want to do, feel comfortable to ask, to touch, whatever. We've done this a couple of times. We're totally into it, so just everyone feel comfortable. I've also got an app on my phone. It's that Oculus that I was talking about. It will speak. I don't know if we're going to do it or not, but because it's an app, I don't know. We'll try.
That's the word bank.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So whether it does anything or not, and again, and I know because it's your first time, if you're getting scared at anything that we're doing, just let me know and I'll shut it off. And you're totally cool. But,
Okay.
yeah, you want to do it?
Yeah.
Where do you guys
We've
want to
done
start?
this a lot. Let me figure it out.
Okay.
I would like to start at the piano.
Okay.
I play saxophone.
Okay.
You're gonna don't.
Okay.
It's okay.
So,
Couch here?
Yeah, the couch that we can sit on right here. No, we can sit on any of these couches here, just not the chairs and stuff. Yeah, we just gotta see if she's here.
The investigate, yeah, the ghost box. Do y'all want the ghost box? Just let us know we have it in our pocket.
Well, we should probably do it together at some point.
Okay, yeah, but if y'all want to go ahead. Okay.
I know y'all probably don't want
No.
anyone like to communicate? Anyone like to touch the EMF detector? We've got several of them out here. Would you like to tell us your name?
I will. So what I'm going to do right now is the recorder.
Okay.
So I'm going to turn it on. I'm just going to ask it some questions and give it time to respond, and then you play it back. Because a lot of times you get an EVP on here that you don't necessarily hear with your ears. So I sort of had like a tiny, tiny little jump there. Nothing.
It says cannot on Oculus. Nick and cannot.
Cannot? Are you telling us you cannot play the piano?
Hello.
It says moon. I just went up and said moon.
I know that we're here sort of in your space, and I'd like to say thank you, first of all, for letting us come up here and just see what's going on. I'm Kristen, and we're here with Brian and Anna and Derek, and we're just sort of here to hang out and, see what's going on. I understand this was sort of the place to be. Would you like to come forward and maybe let us know what's going on, what kind of things you experience here?
Spring.
Spring when you would have maybe a good party. Maybe, we are in spring coming up soon, it's almost Easter. Did you ever have any spring parties, cotillions?
anything to kind of jumpstart the party season.
I know we have a musician here too. I'm sure. Not myself. But
I'm
yes.
actually the musician. I play the saxophone. Not sure if it was invented at the time you would have been here. I think it was in the early 1900s.
I just spiked huge at 9.4 and then went down.
Measure.
Yes, by the measure.
Telepathy.
And that's weird.
Didn't want to tell that.
Some more than others.
Weed.
Weed?
Weed.
She always tells me I'm an empath, like I can read people very well, and
Okay.
I don't like that.
That's okay. That's what's going to help you the most tonight, I think.
I have goosebumps like all over my body.
And that's actually another good side to it, because most meaning you're hearing something that's not communicating necessarily with you,
It's
but
like
along with you.
waves starting at my head. It goes all over my
Right
body.
now?
Phone though triggers
Yes.
Yeah.
EMF.
That's true.
I know it shouldn't move on airplane mode, but it just did sort of seem,
Yeah, mine's doing it at the phone too.
so that then is somehow triggering you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can either do one or the other, basically,
And I'll just do this.
or do
Yeah,
that.
we can set that
Yeah.
down there.
Since you guys already have those.
Oh my god, I'm like having waves of goosebumps. It started at my head and going to
Right
my
now?
feet. Yes, ever since he said that. It's like over and over and over.
I looked at some pictures.
Take some pictures.
You guys mind if the flash goes on?
Go for it.
I just saw a big orb whenever it came on.
Did you?
Yeah, it flew.
I might be, if you guys are interested, we'll change some phone numbers. I could send you something like anything on the
Okay.
videos.
Absolutely.
If there's someone in here with us, is there anything else you'd like to tell us?
You guys want to do a spirit box session?
Sure.
Listen.
I can't.
Hello, that's just because it's your first time.
It probably is, because it's like an emotional thing, like I'm freaking out.
You tell us what sounds like good stuff. I'm a biohazard.
Nature.
This is a last room, right? This room. This is a. This is supposed to be.
What's your name? Did you have lots of fun parties in here?
Object.
object.
Did anything bad ever happen in here?
Was that you earlier that we heard when we were downstairs? Did you make a thud? Were you making the lights flicker earlier? I did hear it. Sorry. Can you show us your gear by coming and playing with the REM pod?
Can you play with the REM pod as your object?
Is there anyone in here with us tonight?
Music. Yeah. That's nice. Just been quiet.
Yeah.
It's also something to mind, I'm not sure if you know, if we pull it up nearly wrong, the chance is cooking. It'll pick up, color coding and stuff.
Okay.
Films.
I want to see if the head actually moves or anything. Yeah, just like this, see if it moves or does anything. No, actually, no. Huh?
I'm gonna bring that up. Why not? Here, too.
Do that, yeah. EVP down.
Let's ask something, I guess. Are there any, what's his last name? The doctor? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Are there any patients of Dr. Sorrell in here? Would you maybe have sat in that wheelchair right over there?
Before I ask questions, I do want to introduce myself because I feel like you should know who I am. My name is Devin. I'm 19 years old.
And my name is Seth.
Did it say anything?
Nope.
Maybe. Doesn't look like it's changed. We hear that somebody in here likes to play with jewelry, anything shiny. I have a piece of jewelry that we put on the table over here. You can go ahead and move it around if you want to play with it. Ball is there, here. You look something? If you're in here, can you look something again?
I want to go sit in the breezeway. Shadow band, please.
Alright, we're gonna go over into the other room. If we can come up there, if you guys.
What legion was he in? Any well-known historical battles?
What types of food did you eat? Temperature. Right. It was really cold.
Yeah. It goes up there.
It was like
This whole area right here is 69 over there. Right here.
Oh, it's getting cold, like coming out through here.
you got 32.
I think it might be up there.
Yeah.
So 68.
It just felt really cold.
Everybody.
Right. Over
Okay,
here.
I think I'm crazy. It sounded like I heard like skirts rustling in that room.
Take part in there?
Get in there, check it out.
You know, like lots of fabric just rustling. I don't imagine it, maybe it's
Sorry. No. Usually don't. Oh,
Can you send me your images?
Which is actually even better, I think, because I think it truly like shows you what it's not just making it. Because we've done it.
There are footsteps in here, but I think it might be that guy she said was upstairs. Like if you just stand in here, just like listen to the ceiling.
You smell anything sweet?
kind of like lavender almost. There.
Where are you getting?
I thought there's clearly like steps above, but I thought it might be
I heard it walking.
that guy that she said was up there, because it didn't.
When I walked in here, I got like a lavender smell. Right here. I don't smell it anymore. It's very sweet.
Okay, so.
It's like you hear the movement,
Yeah.
but it sounds like a person,
That
right?
sounds personal.
Yeah.
But didn't you say it was a former caretaker?
So the log files.
No, I'm sure she said there may be someone upstairs.
Telepathy, bacon, come, threat, prayer, 100, knit, cannot, moon, spray. Yourself, measure, telepathy in, wheat, agent, choose, strange, object, 8, legion, and remove. That's been so far, that's it.
We're definitely not here to threaten you in any way, shape, or form. We're just here to get to know you. You heard that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big song.
I think
it's the
Right
right
guy.
Yeah.
Which is sort of unfortunate for me. I'm going.
Alright, it is time for your first rotation. Those upstairs in the parlor rooms will head down to the lower level. Those in the lower level will meet me in the carriage house, and those in the carriage house will head upstairs to the parlor room.
I totally get it. I don't honestly very often. Thank you, whoever's here for letting us take that off.
Thank you for speaking with us
Thank you for communicating with us.
and allowing us to be your home.
Kids in here?
Yeah, they said there were kids.
It's Bobby.
If there is a little kid in here, please don't touch my legs. I really just would prefer that you don't touch my legs.
Bobby, are you in here? Can you communicate with us? This is a different feel down here.
Telling you. It's an odd vibe. It's just coming in here, I feel like my chest just kind of constricts. Like, it's just as bad. Is there any soldiers in here?
I felt just bad walking in there. I don't like this Okay.
Like, what would you call this?
Like an ice pick maybe?
Sort of. It's subsiding, but yeah, when I walked in here, there was a definite like.
I feel like I have a cramp in my arm, but that's probably because I'm gripping everything so tight.
I'll see, I feel like super dizzy.
There's just something about this room that gives me the heat.
Is there somebody in this room that'd like to communicate with us?
Okay.
That was me.
I heard it. Is there anyone in the wheelchair?
I just realized it was, yeah, if you're comfortable with it,
Okay.
yeah.
Go ahead, sorry. I didn't realize I still had it on, and so I looked down, I was like, oh man.
Can you move the wheelchair?
I know that this room may be associated with a lot of pain, negative energy, and suffering. And I want to apologize for whatever it is that you experienced in here. Most likely it was not your fault, and you're not deserving of anything bad that came to you here. Is there anyone here who'd like to say anything? Whether or not you found peace, regardless of the past? Can you tell us your name?
You feeling okay? Are you feeling okay?
Yeah,
Okay. I just noticed you said that.
I did because I was not feeling so good, to be honest with you, but I'm okay now. I'm feeling. How about anybody fun? Is there any kids in here that want to play?
Is Sarah in here?
Bobby?
Sarah was a little broken like that. Let's see.
It's not a shadow. And I was freaking out a little bit.
Where did you see the shadow?
But it was across that.
I never learned how to play the piano when I was a kid. I loved the sound of it. Would anybody here be willing to play a note on this piano? Maybe a F sharp? Or a middle C? There's a flashlight over here on the table. I know that you can talk to us with that flashlight. If you just roll it towards the K2 meter for a yes, or away from the K2 meter for a no. Do you know how to play the piano? do you know anybody who knows how to play the piano? It's a beautiful piano that's in here.
Right corner of that long hallway.
Okay, put your EMF right here. I want to see temperatures. We're feeling like
It's
very
low
weird.
though. It starts like right here and it goes down. It's cold. Like I've got goosebumps from breathing.
The other thing, I'm feeling really weird right back here, Kristen.
Which is where my arm was touched.
Right
Where I
here.
felt like
I
it
felt
was.
right here and I felt like something touching my neck.
Well, you may go put your camera on that chair facing the back right corner.
Man, it's cold right here.
Oh, see my head again.
See, it's the same spot, right? That's where I was standing earlier when I felt like my arm was touched.
So we're at 68 over there, and then.
It doesn't feel cold. Not like it did. It was very cold, but it was weird. It was like it was starting with low. I can't see. Do you mind if I use the flashlight? Just to walk through the. Okay. I'm just afraid I'm gonna trip over something.
If you're here, can you sit on the couch next to the REM pod and make it go off?
Matilda, was this for your dog?
friends.
No! 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 No!
Honey,
No! 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 No!
honey,
Me, no, honey. Oh, my over there.
okay, okay.
He came over there.
He came over there?
He came over there.
You can't go over there? Okay.
Oh my god.
Okay. Okay, no, we need to, we're on it.
Oh my god. I was to go out into the hallway because I thought
You right.
I got really cold. And I just overwhelmed. Oh my god.
Does that ever happen to you? Did Dad ever get mad at you? I know that your dad is a really busy guy. He probably saw some things that were not really fun, huh? What are things you like to do when you're a baby?
What was that?
Can you say something? Or can you move the wheelchair? I promise you won't get mad. Give it a little push. I thought I would listen back, see if you have anything to say. I hope you did. Or the street. Those windows, right?
So that's a wall.
Okay, people, right, okay. I just saw a shadow walk by, so I just, I'm sure it's probably.
Is anyone in here with us? Are there any soldiers in here? You know, there was a battle call, and we know a lot of folks are buried underneath us. You don't mean any harm or any disrespect by walking over your graves. Unfortunately, it's right underneath us.
Oh my word, I saw from the machine the red light and I saw it moving across the room and I was like, oh Lord, there's something over there.
I just saw a shadow there. But
Yeah, but I think it's somebody going.
Is there anything you want us to tell your families, tell your friends? Is there anything you want us to know?
What was your life like?
I imagine you stayed pretty busy with all the parties they must have thrown.
What kind of foods would you make?
Did you hear that? Yeah.
I did.
So that was something.
We love this.
I don't know that. It's sort of, I heard Danish or fish, something with an ish. What I.
Did you make fish?
You're having a lot of luck with food questions.
Maybe it's because they don't like to eat.
And seriously, like, you.
I like fish. I like Danishes. What were your favorite foods?
Yeah, you can grab it out. If there was something that you would
You like
in here. That was me bumping into a chair. Father, was that you that was in here with us? And I told his death make you very sad. Well, if you are in here with us, could you let us know by moving the flashlight? Or turning the flashlight off? Well, I know you weren't allowed to sit on the couch before when you lived here.
Alright, it's time for your final rotation. Those upstairs in the parlor room will head down. Those in the lower level will be in the carriage house, and those in the carriage house will head upstairs to the parlor room.
No, if you go to the door.
I saw pictures of this house here. Yeah, it's that one. I've seen pictures and, ooh, I got chills. Yeah, I got a good feeling about this place here. I like this. Sorry, it's hard to see here. I'm trip on furniture. Alright.
You want to put it back down again?
Push. I don't know if there's people downstairs or not. I heard a voice of some sort.
Did you want to set it over here on this table?
I'm just go ahead and take a few rapid pictures in the mirror here. It's kind of hard. Most of the evidence they've gotten on here online are when the lights are on without flash, because flash does a lot of dust problems. So if you want to get like a few like videos in there or something.
No, get a picture. Does it say about selfie?
They just got pictures from the mirror.
Or not a selfie, take a picture of yourself in the mirror.
Just of myself in the mirror?
So I'll know all three. So it's okay. Alright, so we got about 25 minutes. We were told to talk to Molly and Matilda in here. This was the ladies' parlor, right?
Yes.
Where's the list? I'm late. No, it's really tempting.
You know, I'm talking here.
My name is Devin.
Does anybody here like to play hide and seek?
Is there anyone here that likes to play? Are there any of the doctor's patients in here with us tonight? Did you have surgery that didn't go as you had expected? Anything on the K2 meter?
How about you? Anything hit?
Anything over there yet? We're in the hallway. Can you move something, Kelvin?
Is there anything approached the thing yet?
No.
coming in. Matilda. Is Matilda with us this evening? I don't know if it's talking or what. You just regular music.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like regular music. If there's anybody in here with us, can you sit by the ring box? Let us know that you're here. Yeah, I smelled something in that other one earlier. Huh? No.
I hear this is an old Confederate song. No, else is true. Did you know the song? What? I can hear you. What'd you say? Oh. Good try.
Bring the camera on, I don't see it. You see it?
There is a lot of dust in here.
There is a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I went to closet as well.
So it's not just me, because I can see it with my eyes.
Yeah, I can
but not
see it.
the-
Yeah, I can see it as well.
Okay.
There's a lot.
Okay.
What is that?
Yeah. That doesn't sound like any song.
I don't like the flashlight. It's kind of hard like this. Flash.
There is some.
Yeah, it's just here.
Okay. That's all. No, turn on my flashlight.
Are you here, Matilda?
If there's anybody here, just let us know that you're here. That way we can have a conversation.
How old is Moxley? Was Moxley around here? Did you want one thing? favorite? Or do you prefer to sit and chit chat? Can you come sit and talk with me? What about you, Molly?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I put you over there. That would be it for me. Yeah.
You guys found anything on the FLIR?
On the FLIR, yeah, we do sometimes. We use the FLIR for our lock-ins when they have more time and we're we have time to explain everything. But yeah, people do get some stuff with them. It's tough. Have you used this version of the Flip before? It's hard to take. You have to take the picture right away, or it goes away really quickly. So a lot of the time, people will say something and they didn't capture it. See something they didn't capture it, but
Yeah, you have to run video with those.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
yeah. I'm glad you did too. I had her phone number. I would have called you. We figured it out. Thank you.
Recording the whole thing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this doesn't record it.
You'll have to send it to them.
Yes.
So I think I have a rogue walkie-talkie.
No, it's right behind you.
It is?
Yeah, just say tail, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Thank you, everyone. Oh, okay. All right. So how was it? Yeah? Okay, got one awesome. I'll take it.
Very cool.
Okay, good. So the way that I normally do this is I just go group by group, and you can walk me through room by room. You can tell me the highlights, however you want to do it. So I don't know if you're still standing with your groups, but we'll go group. Okay, we'll go group by group. Let's start with this group. What stood out to you? Walking room by room, however you want to do it.
What do we have? Upstairs, we had a couple of K2.
Oh, you did?
Lives
Here.
Yeah,
That
here,
never
it's
happens to me. I never see the EMF go off, so that's neat. Was it when you were asking anything specific or trying to reach out to someone in particular?
Mr.
Mr. Sam.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
It didn't spike all the way to red, is that what you were saying?
It was.
That's still okay.
It went like, up there it was like 2 lights. It was green
Yeah.
and 2 more.
Okay,
He had
that's
asked
cool though.
specifically if he enjoyed living there, and we are almost positively got a no over the box.
Okay.
And because the EMF went off at the same time.
Oh, that's neat. Okay,
So-
that's what we want. We want validation from more than
Definitely,
one.
these two of us heard no for sure. And
Yeah,
which the three of us heard the no, and the
And it
EMF
sounded
went
like
off
a
at the
male's
same time.
voice.
Definitely a male voice.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
And then
Good question.
in the, you can explain it. You looked possessed.
Yeah.
So you came in and I thought she possessed you at that point.
Yeah, because
So
she had asked a question.
I had asked Mrs. Hilda if she and Molly were friends, and he was in the other room. We were in the part of the
He came in freaking out.
freaking
Saying
out.
no.
We were on the camera when that happened.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going on.
No,
but-
no, me neither. And he looked possessed, like in screaming, no, no, no,
We
no.
heard
we
that.
heard
Was
that.
about 110?
That's, yeah.
That was.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, he came in and I truly thought that she
So-
had, based on the question and then the immediate response, that he was like being possessed at that point. That is
I
what it
walked
looked like.
from that room just because I thought I heard like some of the footsteps there, and I knew there was somebody
left us
downstairs.
in the foyer.
In the foyer, and I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. I just, it was about 5 maybe, so I walked over there. I don't know if I had a K2 meter, but I had my camera, and I was gonna video, and
I asked
as I got
questions at the same time.
closer to the doorway going from the dining men's parlor area into the foyer, it started getting really cold, but I started getting just chills throughout my body. Where I walked, I couldn't take it. I had to get out of there really, really fast. Overwhelmingly sad.
So this happens a lot to people. This is an empathic
I-
response.
I'm
Yeah.
a nurse. I work in pediatrics.
Oh.
When people are really sad in the room,
He can't go in.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
Um,
Right, empathic.
but it was way overwhelming.
What do you think that it was, or who do you think you were tapping into?
I'm not quite sure. At first, I thought it was no, they weren't friends at all, but I was incredibly sad. So when we were talking, the only thing I could think of is it was Matilda sad about Molly.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Maybe.
Molly sad about Matilda. Matilda's someone who died.
Yeah, I
First.
think they both were probably sad about each other.
So
Molly was essentially Matilda's right hand. They were working very closely together. I highly doubt that was the first time Matilda found out about Francis and Molly, right? I would imagine that they were both sad for each other in some ways. I mean, I don't really know. This is just me thinking as a human being how I would feel. So maybe that is what you were picking up on. Maybe both of them were sad.
I couldn't stop it.
So that's different, right? I told you a sad story here tonight. You heard about some serious subjects, and it makes sense that you would feel sad or feel sorry for the people that you're learning about tonight. But there's a difference between feeling sad or sorry for someone after hearing a story than sobbing. And this happens a lot. We had men recently go upstairs and walk into Molly's bedroom, 2 men and 2 women, and the men were beside themselves with grief. I mean, they were sobbing, tears rimming their eyes the rest of the night. That's different. So that's really interesting that you picked up on that. I'm sorry that it happened too. It can be absolutely overwhelming. So yeah, I'm sorry. But that's really cool, actually, that you were able to feel someone else's feelings. That's kind of a neat experience.
Almost all the where it was, that's actually the only part of the house where I haven't had any chills until that time was that upstairs when we were in the basement. Almost everywhere I walked, I would have chills when I walked into the room. Same thing when we went upstairs, I had chills when I walked up there. But when we walked from the basement up there, I felt nothing at all, no chills, nothing. Any room we walked into until I walked that way into that room.
Very interesting. Okay. Wow. That's a big one. It's a big reaction. Yeah, and that happens. A lot of people have that kind of reaction. Wow, sorry. Yeah. Anything else from your group? Anything else to report? Personally or equipment? You were asking the piano to play, I think. That was your group. Didn't anything there. Not always. Yeah. Would have been cool, but. Alright. Well, cool. That was a lot, though. Alright. What about this group over here? What stood out to you?
I had something happen in the office. Well, I felt chills when I walked in there in the office area. I don't know if that's the room we were just talking about, but when I started to walk like over the threshold into the office, you just feel like a tremendous sadness coming from that room. And then when we were across the hall, I kept thinking I heard like skirts rustling in there, so I kept going back. But I never got anything like that. But speaking of sadness, I couldn't get within 2 feet of Molly's room, and I started crying.
Yep.
It was just too heavy.
That's generally where it happens.
For me.
Heavy is a really good way to describe it. It feels like a weight.
Yes.
It feels like a heaviness. One of the most common reportings from petite women is that they feel a heaviness on their chest, and it's hard for them to breathe, and their heart starts to race along with it. And a lot of people also feel emotional, as I already mentioned, especially
my chest
in
felt
her
really
room.
tight. Like I was just
a
weight. It was too much.
That's
Like
exactly
they all
how-
went in there, and I had to stand back here. I couldn't do it.
People leave that's the last place we go on the ghost tours at night, and people leave early from the tour because they can't stand being in her room. They can't get a grip on their emotions in there. They hate it. You know, they have to leave. They're embarrassed. They're overcome. They don't know what's going on, and they need to leave.
And it was quick.
Yeah.
I mean, I was fine,
It's
and
very
he
rough.
he was behind me and trying to get me to go in, and I was like, I can't do it.
Yeah,
And I
okay.
started immediately just sobbing. I was like, I can't do this. I can't go in there. It's too
Exactly.
much.
Okay, that's different.
It's too much.
Exactly what we're talking about.
But they had a lot.
We had a conversation
We had a
with
conversation.
Molly on the EMF. You could clearly, so I have a different one. It's not the lights, it's an actual, it's a millimeter, so it gives like the point reading.
So instead of having a light that just gives you a digital reading, and it's a little bit more accurate than the EMF meters, it works the same way. Essentially, it just is giving you a
Like
digital
a
reading.
Ferrari versus like a Civic, right? Like
Yeah.
you still get to the same place, but it's a little bit different. And we have, I don't know how long we were in there, 10 minutes?
Yeah, I don't know if it.
Y'all were in there
Yes,
pretty
that
much
is,
the whole time.
that one, the 10-minute,
It-
24.
So as we were talking, and literally the entire night, maybe a blip, nothing for me on the meter.
I got one high up there, and it sounded like a male voice whenever I was trying to talk to Mr. Sam. Came through the spirit box. But other than that, maybe a blip. I mean, that's
Like
all you hear, and
nothing.
it was like,
And
hi.
so we went in the room, and I told Brian, I said, why don't we start and just talk about Molly? I don't care about any of this. Let's just talk about her and sort of give her power. And so, and I was feeling, I didn't feel sad actually. I felt angry.
I never felt.
I was angry. So we were talking about how essentially what her day would be like and how she was raped, and her friends were probably even angry at her, and and yes. So we just were talking about this, and as we started, the meter starts going, and the more deep into her day and like sort of what her experiences would have been, it just kept going, and then we were able to be asking We asked the same question about the wife, and that was a very strong, that she seemed to.
Yeah, we asked if she was friends with Matilda, and so the rules we kind of set up with the conversation were higher meant yes, and lower went no.
No,
That's
correct.
cool.
And we asked if she was friends with Matilda or she felt sadness that Matilda had died or something. It went straight 0.
So and I was
Like-
feeling again this like anger. Like I was feeling like I mean, not that someone had raped me, but I had I was enraged in there for her life and what she felt. And when we asked about Matilda, whoo, it went to 0.
It was like
boom.
one.
Like an indifference.
Yes.
We had high of like 1.6, I think we saw.
Yeah,
And
we
it
were-
went 0.
Just straight 0.
And we asked the question, do you think Matilda knew that you were being raped, that Francis was raping you? And it came immediately back up
like,
to 5.
bam. Yeah.
And on his ovulus, we got the word incubus.
And fear.
And fear.
Fear.
Fear
in
came
that
through
room.
too, which was actually really sad.
And Ovulus is a device that gives you words. So it'll give you a text that you can read. When you walk into a room, sometimes it'll give you a name or a word of some sort. So that's what an Ovulus is. They probably have just an app on their phone. Yep, yeah.
Yeah. So the fear one was really sad because we were talking about how she lived in fear.
And you were feeling her fear perhaps a little bit
Yeah,
too.
there was definitely, but it wasn't like a conversation.
And
Like
then around where it got to a level 1 on the EMF meter, like you could just feel waves of energy.
yes,
Like
yes.
it felt like it was running up and down my back. And then a little bit later, we asked if she had a message she wanted to tell us, and it kept getting higher and higher. And so we asked if do you want us to turn the spirit box on so you can say something through the spirit box, and it went higher and higher. So we turned on the spirit box, and I couldn't tell what it said, but a female voice did come through.
Okay, were you recording?
I was recording.
Okay.
I just haven't.
Later on, you can even isolate the sound. You can use Programmer, you can email it to us, and we can try to isolate the sound. This is a note for everybody. If you recorded audio, if I were you, I would listen to your audio in a dark room by yourself. I would use over-the-ear headphones, and I would try to numb out all of my other senses and just really listen in and mark down what time you're hearing things so you can go back and check your photos and see if anything adds up. So yeah, go back and see if you can figure out what it was that she said. But that's so
It was awesome.
fascinating.
It was
You were
very
getting
cool.
somebody was sticking with you. They were really there to answer your questions.
And everything, it was consistent as well. Like if we come
Wow.
back to the same questions that were no's,
Yeah.
they go back
Do
no.
it again.
And if
I'd
they were
like to
yeses,
ask them again.
they were coming back up.
Well, and then when we were in
Great.
the basement, we all 3 of us had an experience in the corner beside the fireplace in this far
Yes,
room
yes.
over here, right where the wheelchair is.
Okay.
So when you were down there giving us the tour, I kept turning around to look at him because he was standing behind me because I kept feeling like 3 fingers, like pressure right here on my arm, and I kept